Um, Te Kawa Robb, Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Te Hangi is an environmental educator, waste minimisation consultant, photographer, waka voyager, father, partner, brother and son. Working for Parekore in Te Upuku o Te Ika, Greater Wellington region, Te Kawa works to support marae, kura, kohanga, councils, events, offices and tertiary organisations with kaupapa Māori waste minimisation actions. So I'm now going to hand over to Te Kawa.
Awesome. Kia ora, Karen. Kia ora, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This is awfully exciting to be participating in this discussion. It's sometimes hard a little bit being a presenter. I'm really keen to hear what other people are saying. But I'm looking forward to seeing the recordings afterwards. Tēnā no tātou I tō whakapiri mai I tēnei kaupapa o te hongongoi kirihau kore. So as Karen said, my name is Te Kawa. I have whakapapa to Te Moana Nui a Toi, which is the Bay of Plenty. So Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Rangi. But I grew up here in Te Whanganui-a-Tara in Wellington, and I learnt all the things that help inform what I do now as environmental educator and I guess advisor for waste minimisation. So I work for the organisation Parekore, which essentially is zero waste, and we're very much about supporting whānau marae iwi and hapu with waste minimisation initiatives. What's been really exciting as part of the personal journey for waste minimisation, and in particular minimising plastic, is doing this as parents. So it's often we've been, I guess, a journey of teaching other people and talking in theory about ways to minimise waste with a baby. So having our baby come along 9 months ago has meant that we can really start putting some of those theories into place and start practicing. Not practicing on a child, but practicing the practices of minimising waste. So I guess a couple of things that's really important to kind of acknowledge really is when we as an organisation talk about waste minimisation, we come from a Indigenous worldview and from a whakapapa perspective, which allows us to look at the world in terms of the relationships we have to all the things from our worldview and our relationship through atua to all the resources around us. When I guess our journey for becoming working towards zero waste as parents sort of started with our discussions even before my partner fell pregnant. So I mean, it was part of our lifestyle anyway of trying to minimise things. So it wasn't suddenly a massive new shift for us. There were already sort of some foundations of going plastic free or minimising plastic at least. But when we were talking about what it would be like to have children, one of the things that came up was about wanting to really focus on using reusable nappies. So that was one of the big commitments we made sort of early on about wanting to use reusable nappies and minimise the amount of disposables, our interaction with disposables. A couple of other things that once Taiawate was born, we started sort of learning and really sort of looking at all the other things that were around were things like food, clothing and toys. So really it's reusable nappies, food, clothing and toys were the four main areas that we identified we would be looking at and trying to minimise the amount of plastic coming in through those, I guess, categories. I want to be perfectly honest, going plastic free and minimizing waste as much as possible as a parent is tough. I mean, being a parent is, for us, she's our first baby. It is tough. There are big challenges out there, and there's constantly times when we're sort of having to weigh up, is our sanity really important at this point, or are we going to stick to the kaupapa? And trying to find, that sort of shifting balance. Sometimes the moon phases gives us a lot of energy, and we're like, yeah, no, cool, let's hang on to this. Other times it's like, look, we've just got to feed the baby. So we make those decisions constantly. We also want to acknowledge that we are fortunate to have some privileges, I guess, that mean that we are able to explore a few more things, which might be a bit more challenging for other families. So, we come to this acknowledging this, and mindful that what I'm going to share might have some of those things in there. My partner Rebecca was really fortunate to attend one of Kate Meads's waste-free parenting courses, which was super helpful. She tells me, sadly I was doing something busy, couldn't attend that, but it was really helpful, and came away with some really cool freebies as well, some samples. I think Kate's doing them online at the moment, so while we work out sort of our post-COVID things. But that was really helpful to sort of inform us, because we didn't really have a foundation. This was our first baby. We didn't really quite know what to go into. So mindful of time, I know that we're sort of shifting our time a little bit, but I'm just going to get straight into just talking about some of the things that we have in our world. So as I said, reusable nappies and the associated kind of bits of equipment or tools that go with that was a really big part, and that's been a big focus for us. So when we started out with reusable nappies, we were fortunate to be able to access the services of Nappy Mojo, which is like a reusable nappy rental service. So for $170, we had a 6-week hire of reusable nappies, and there's all sorts of different tiers you can go onto and on their website and find out a bit more information. But it meant that we could try a bunch of different styles. So they're not all one style. They have slightly different shapes. There are day nappies and night nappies with covers and things like that. So we were able to kind of experiment with it, and we timed the arrival of this kind of big bucket, which was, it became the nappy bucket, to get there before Taiwotea was born, which fortunately it did. And after she was born, and after we left hospital and kind of settled into a routine, and bear in mind at this time as well, when new child enters your life, it was like, look, nappies are kind of the last thing on the list now. So she wasn't disposable for a wee while, but because we had to think about it, because we had a bit of a plan and had the equipment, the Nappy Mojo stuff, it meant that we could kind of get into it fairly early on. So that was really, really helpful, having access to that. So I'm not sure about what other services there are around Aotearoa that are similar to Nappy Mojo, but that could be something worth checking out. It meant that, we were able to sort of try the different styles that sort of worked for her body shape, and worked out quite quickly which ones sort of tended to leak a little bit more, and which ones were she was growing out of or needed to that didn't quite fit sometimes. So, because there are all sorts of different styles, I'll talk about those as well. Following on from that, we started looking at buying reusable secondhand. There's some really great forums, Facebook pages online. We call it the MCN, Modern Cloth Nappies. And you can go into these buy-sell pages and buy bulk lots, because as babies obviously get older, they get bigger, so they grow out of the smaller ones. You can get into next size ones. So there's, around Aotearoa, there's constantly this kind of ongoing trade of nappies being grown out of and then on-sold and being bought, a bigger size being bought by others. So it's quite interesting. You want to put in a little bit of time and sort of start thinking about these things in advance. Just like if you're scouring Trade Me for that perfect thing, you want to, you might not have access to it straight away. So give yourself a bit of time to prep for that. And a lot of people, as I say, do grow out of them. So they, in bulk lots, they just sell, 10, 20 at a time. Getting into this would also meant that we could understand, we had to learn sort of how many nappies she was going through, and then what our sort of home cycle sort of routine was like to then understand how many we actually needed. So she was going through roughly about 6 a day, and we would plan to do the wash every second day. So we would basically, the first lot would we'd give them a rinse. They'd go into the bucket. The next day, that lot would come through, we'd give it a rinse, and then combine the two and put them in the wash, and then they'd be drying. So fortunately, it was summer at the time we were getting into it, so we had the access to the sun, which meant it was really, really great. You could put them out in the morning. That's part of my morning routine, and you'd take them off the line pretty quickly. Once they're dry and beautifully sort of starched by the sun, hiki tamanui te rā. But it meant that we, it needed a good amount. So immediately there's 12 for 2 days. There's 18 for a sort of a third day, and potentially another 12, so 24 if you're doing something like traveling the other end of the island and just need an extra backup date, or you don't have access to the washing machine straight away. But in saying all that, it was because we got into it pretty quickly. It meant, or pretty early on in her life, it meant that it sort of normalized for us fairly early on. So in total, and we use an app to sort of track things like nappy changes to sort of understand how many she's going through a day. But it can also tell us how many we've gone through. So 1,359 nappies in 9 months we've diverted away from landfill. There's probably a few missed there, but that's a pretty awesome number, and that's something that we look at constantly and go, cool, that's pretty significant. Also really want to say we do have a stash of disposable nappies in emergencies, and we've gone handy on using reusables, but there's plenty of our friends who do a bit of a mix. So they might do some reusables during the day and some disposables at night. One of our close friends has given us a whole bunch of her sort of hand-me-down clothes from her older child for Taiawatea to use. She does that, so they use disposables at night because the ones that she has just don't quite fit, and they tend to leak a little bit more. So yeah, you need to be really realistic with what you can do in your life and what you can manage. And often say to people, look, it's all good just to try one, and if you're just doing one a day, that's really cool. Give that a go. There are a lot of different styles and a lot of different things you can use, a lot of different types you can use. So there's kind of the insert ones where you have a little pocket where the reusable bit goes into, and you pull that out, give that a rinse out, and then you give this bit a scrub, so the solids come off this, and then you wash it. There are these sort of all-in-one things, so they have these three kind of flaps, which meant they're all attached, so you don't have to worry about losing them. Some of them come with domes at the front, sort of snap domes, so you can adjust for different sizes. Others come with Velcro around the waist. There are other types of all-in-ones where there's sort of a sleeve in the middle, but it's attached at one end, so it's all stays together. And then you've got night nappies, which are basically all cloth. So they're all cloth with an insert that detaches using domes, and just like that. And then you have a cover, a waterproof cover to stop moisture leaking out. So that collects, because it's going to be on for a few hours at night. So then this helps stop, leaking. So this is going to be really absorbent, and then this stops everything getting wet inside.
I'm just going to interrupt you just for one very quick second.
Yes.
I noticed a few people putting up their hands. If you pop your questions into the chat, rather than doing a breakout at the end, we're just going to make some time for Q&A. So we've still got another good 5 minutes. So there will be a chance to ask some questions. Okay. Put them on the chat, or else we'll ask them at the end.
Awesome, great. So the other things that we use is we use these cloths. They're kind of like small flannels, which means that we don't need to use wet wipes. There are other things that you can use. So these are woolen covers, which you can use over the nappies at night if you don't want to use the synthetic ones. And they apparently really absorbent, and you use lanolin, I think, to help keep it waterproof on the inside. Yeah, so reusable nappies was basically one of our biggest things that we decided to go for. In addition to that, there's a lot of other things that we do in our life, like using. So Shirley's just actually taught people how to use how to make kawa balm. We use a kawa balm, but my sister makes this one, so that's sort of something we keep in the whānau. One of the big challenges we have with going plastic free is around food. So where we can, we get food from a local a local urban farm called Kai Cycle. So every couple of weeks we'll buy a basically big cardboard box. It's got all sorts of veggies which they grow using compost, which is collected from places all around town. There's a nice sort of circular system where we give our compost back. But there are times when we just need a bag of frozen peas in the freezer just in case, because if things are turning to custard and we haven't got home in time and we just need to give baby some food, the priority is giving her some food so we can heat those up and give her something to munch on while we cook the rest. Most of the food that we use that we feed her is all sort of bulk cooked. So we'll do a big cook of when she was on purees, we just blend up a whole bunch of food, blend up a whole bunch of kumara and stuff, and then freeze them. And we had some little like silicone tray things which you can freeze the food into, and we used to pop them out and melt them down, and then that was her puree. Now she's off those, we just use them for stocks. You can just make some stock and put them in there and carry on using them, so minimizing your waste. Obviously with supermarket shopping, it's just much the same. You're using your reusable bags and your produce bags. There are brown paper bags that come from the supermarket, but we try to, where it's possible, minimize the amount of things that are coming into our house as well. Toys, we're a big fan of going for non-plastic toys, so wooden rattles and little things that just keep her occupied. And we're fortunate that we communicated this pretty early to our whānau as well, so they're really supportive and they understand, yep, cool, okay, if we're going to give her something, then we will make it a wooden toy or something that's non-plastic, basically, is the guidance that we give. Most of the clothes, and I think maybe it's pretty normal for a lot of babies, there's a lot of natural fibres amongst babies' clothes as well, and Nan knitted this sweater, so that's a lovely addition to the wardrobe. But I think that's one of the things that we become really mindful of, is how much natural fibres there are for babies' clothes, and maybe we should normalise this a little bit more for us as adults as well. For food waste, we have bokashi bins, so anytime that food doesn't quite make it into your mouth or makes it onto the wall or the floor, that gets collected and put into the bokashi bin, and then that gets composted down and obviously goes to the urban farm, and we get kai back. Mindful of time, so I'm going to just wrap this up before I get into a couple of those questions. So goals, ultimately, long term, our plan is we want to be living sort of on a papakainga environment, so living off-grid, growing and harvesting our own food. But while we're flatting here at the moment, some of those things are a little bit of a challenge. So there's quite a few steps before getting to that goal. I think what we're doing in our scenario right now, and especially with the support of our landlords, they're like, oh, if you want to make a garden, go for it, which is we're really thankful for, to have their support. That's where our ultimate goal is heading, so we can minimize plastic coming in because we're sustainable. Kia ora, Karen.
Kawa, thank you so much. And I'm sorry to wave at you, but in a minute or so, we're going to be heading back to the main room. And I'm conscious that there might be people who have questions to ask. So I'll just check. So first of all, in chat, we have a question. What's the name of the nappy tracking app you use?
Oh, yes. Great question. Let me have a look at it. It is called Sprout.
Oh, that's a good name.
Yeah.
And there was also a question about experience traveling and using reusables, but I think you actually covered it when you were talking. So does anybody else have a question? Feel free to unmute your microphone if you do, or just pop something in chat.
I can talk to the traveling one a little bit. Yeah, for us, it was, we made sure we had a little bucket in the back. We had as many of the nappies as possible washed and ready and dry and loaded up, so it was a full planned operation. And then we just had an extra bucket. We knew the destination we were going to, the Airbnb, we made sure it had a washing machine, and we checked with them first, would they mind if we washed nappies? And they were really happy, but due to the route we took, it was only until the third day we were able to actually get and start washing those nappies. So at the time, what was coming out of Taiwa there was only small amounts. So I think as now she's a bit older, we need to have a bit more of a plan around how we deal things along the way. I bet that nice enough.
Right. Okay. Now, do we have any final questions from anybody? If not, I'd just like to say a really big thank you to Te Kawa for sharing his experience and he is as a parent. It's been really great to listen to. So thank you so much.